Alright, this is my week 3 assignment, and I focused on the topic of use of force since that's come up a lot in media recently. So starting off looking at the Bureau of Statistics, found out that Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 required the Attorney General to collect and publish data on excessive use of force by law enforcement officers. In 1995, the National Institute of Justice and the Bureau of Justice Statistics hosted a workshop to address challenges in collecting this data. As a result, 2 major initiatives were launched: the International Association of Chiefs of Police National Use of Force database and the Police Public Safety Contract. The PPCS is a national survey that gathers information on citizens with law enforcement, including traffic stops, arrests, and incidents of use of force. In terms of force types, deadly or lethal force is meant to cause death or serious harm, while excessive force refers to lawful force used inappropriately across multiple instances. Non-deadly or less lethal force is used to gain compliance without death or serious harm, while excessive force refers to lawful force used inappropriately across multiple instances. So finally, use of force is simply the effort law enforcement uses to gain compliance from a subject. So, police departments use various pre-employment screening techniques to identify candidates who may not meet performance standards, including background checks, credit history reviews, psychological tests, and medical exams. Psychological tests such as the California Psychological Inventory and Minnesota Multi-Basic Personality Inventory have been studied extensively and are considered valid tools for assessing traits like aggression and impulsivity that could affect job performance. However, other screening methods like background checks lack empirical research, though they are commonly used. A combination of multiple screening methods is seen as more effective. And police training includes basic field and in-service training, with hours varying by state. Basic training includes firearms, self-defense, and criminal law, while field training allows new officers to learn from senior officers, and service training maintains officers' certification. The impact of training on use of force instance is debated, with some studies suggesting that more training can help officers manage situations with less force, while others show mixed results. Overall, there's limited research on the effectiveness of different training methods in relation to the use of force. More empirical studies are needed to understand the relationship between pre-employment screening, education training, and use of force in policing. So here's the impact of use of force on criminals or suspects can be significant and multifaceted, affecting both the individuals involved and the broader community. Here are some key impacts that I noticed. So use of force, especially excessive or lethal force, can lead to serious physical injuries or even death. Non-lethal force can cause temporary injuries, but more severe force can result in permanent harm or fatality. So suspects who experience force, even non-lethal, may suffer from long-term psychological effects such as trauma, PTSD, or fear of law enforcement. This can have lasting effects on their mental health and their behavior. The use of force can also escalate a situation, leading to more resistance or violence from suspects and potentially putting officers and others at risk. The use of excessive force can heighten tensions in interactions. Suspects who experience force may face additional legal charges, particularly if they resist arrest or provoke officers. In some cases, they may claim excessive force in lawsuits against police departments, leading to legal and financial consequences. So incidents of use of force, especially those that result in injury or death, can lead to public outrage, protests, and a lack of trust in law enforcement. This can damage the relationship between police and the community they serve. Suspects may develop a negative view of law enforcement, leading to distrust, fear, or avoidance of police in the future, which can hinder cooperation or prevent effective policing. Overall, the use of force can both immediate and long-term consequences for suspects, impacting their physical, emotional, and social well-being. It can also affect how the public perceives law enforcement practices and the justice system. So looking more into the law enforcement lens, when necessary, it can protect officers from immediate threat and ensure their safety during confrontations with suspects. Officers who use force excessively or inappropriate force can face legal consequences such as lawsuits and investigation. This can affect their career and their reputation in the department. Incidences of use of force can affect public trust in law enforcement, as I mentioned. I also think that repeated exposure to violent encounters can lead to burnout, stress, and PTSD. Use of force incidents may lead to calls for changes in law enforcement policies, increased trainings, and the implementation of new strategies to reduce the need for force. Officers may also come to be more cautious or hesitant, which can backfire on the efficiency of law enforcement. And within the media, like I mentioned, it can shape the public's perception of law enforcement. So looking more into the challenges of using force, there's no standardized approach to police training across all departments, leading to varying levels of preparedness and handling potential violent situations. Inconsistent training or on de-escalation techniques, conflict resolution, and emotional intelligence can result in unnecessary use of force. Officers may also unconsciously act on stereotype or biases, which can influence decisions to use force or not. Some officers may also resort to excessive or lethal force because they're scared or because there's a lack of accountability and oversight within this issue. Many law enforcement agencies face resource constraints, including insufficient fundings for trainings, equipment, and mental health support for officers, so they may resort to violence. The media, with them distrusting the police and not wanting to report incidents or whatnot because they don't trust their relationship with the police. And law enforcement agencies do not consistently hold officers accountable for their actions. It can result in a lack of public confidence. Kind of just mentioned, officers who regularly engage in this may experience psychological stress and burnout. A cultural aspect of where officers protect one another can hinder efforts to address misconduct or excessive force. And then legal and political challenges such as qualified immunity for officers or resistance to police reform initiatives can make it difficult to implement effective challenges that reduce the use of force. So overall, mitigating the impact of use of force can involve overcoming a combination of cultural, systemic, and practical challenges within law enforcement. So moving towards kind of a solution, we could look at de-escalation training, implement mandatory comprehensive de-escalation training for all officers, and this training would focus on techniques to calm tense situations and prevent unnecessary use of force. Emphasizing communication skills and emotional intelligence can help officers manage confrontations without resorting to physical force. We must require all officers to wear body cameras and keep them on, so it can help promote accountability and protect officers against false claims and provide transparency in use of force incidents. And then we must also adopt a community policing strategy where officers engage with local communities in proactive non-enforcement roles. Building trust and understanding through positive interactions can help reduce the tensions between the community and the police force. We also can implement regular implicit biases and cultural competency training to reduce prejudices that may influence an officer's decision. This training would focus on recognizing and addressing unconscious biases, which can lead to disproportionate use of force against certain groups. And then we must also have stronger accountability and transparency. Establish independent review boards to oversee use of force incidents and ensure transparency in investigations. Officers involved in incidents of excessive force should be held accountable, and the public should be kept informed about their accountability. We also should provide mental health support and counseling for officers who experience high-stress situations or force frequently. We also can invest in non-lethal weapons such as tasers, rubber bullets, beanbag rounds, and provide officers with more options instead of resorting to violence. And then we also can implement clear, consistent policies that outline the acceptable use of force. Police should emphasize the necessity of proportional force and prioritize nonviolent methods when possible. Officers should be regularly trained and tested on these policies. Encourage community members to participate in local policing efforts through advisory councils or public forums. And then lastly, I thought of after use of force incidents, provide mandatory psychological support for officers and others that were involved in the situation. This can help everyone process the event and the emotional impact and mental health impact that they had on it. So by implementing these policies and practices, law enforcement can foster safer, more positive interactions with the community and reduce instances of excessive force and build trust between police officers and the people they serve. So, in conclusion, addressing the impact of use of force on law enforcement and its interactions with the community requires a multifaceted approach. By implementing standardized de-escalation training, fostering transparency, and prioritizing mental health and community involvement, police departments can create safer and more effective policing practices. Additionally, investing in non-lethal alternatives and promoting accountability will help reduce the instances of excessive force and rebuild public trust. The ongoing evolution of policies and practices combined with consistent oversight is crucial in shaping law enforcement in a more professional and community-centered institution. Here are these citations, and thank you so much for watching.